afternoon, Virginia.
Good afternoon,
All
Nick.
right. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on our podcast of the Chair of Complexities and Humanities.
It's my pleasure.
We are here on the campus of UM6B, the Mohammed VI Polytechnic University in Ben Guerir. And to give our viewers and listeners a bit of an overview, you're an independent researcher. You're currently in residence at the Institute for Advanced Studies here at UM6B. And you have a doctoral degree in this history of science and epistemology from the Federal University of Rio. You have a master's degree in philosophy at a Pontifical Catholic University in Rio, if I'm not mistaken, and also a master's in logic and scientific method from the London School of Economics. So just to kick things off, Virginia, could you please share a little bit about your background and what initially sparked your interest in the field of epistemology? And just how did your journey sort of unfold, leading you to your current position and your research interests?
Okay. So, my current interests are epistemological, and I like to work with the understanding of how different forms of reasoning, different forms of rationality, and different knowledge systems actually come together and can be epistemically addressed. I also currently work with interdisciplinary studies, with methodologies or rules of thumb about how to do this kind of research, which is very much called for in today's world, given the complexities, given the radical difficulties in tackling the wicked problems that are around the world today. How did I get here? So when I first began my undergraduate studies, I initially went into physics. As a young woman, I thought that physics was the topic that would really give me understanding about how the universe works. And so I started studying physics, but for one reason that was very circumstantial. I thought that was in Brazil, in the Brasilia National University. And I bumped into teachers that were maybe too technical and not too conceptual about what is physics. And I was searching for this conceptual understanding, not very much for mathematical explanations about the universe. So I shifted from physics to statistics, believe it or not. Why? Statistics is also very mathematical. However, in statistics, I thought I would have a greater contact with the human level, with the human, with a human dimension of what I was studying, in as much as with a mathematical description, but very much looking into human problems. So I actually worked as a statistician for 7+ years, and I also went on to systems analysis, because you need the computer for statistics and basically for everything nowadays. We are talking about 30+ years ago, maybe 40, between 30 and 40 years ago. And so I worked as a statistician, and I thought it was very interesting for some time. But then my urge for a more conceptual understanding continued unfulfilled. And finally, a colleague lent me a book by Karl Popper. And when I read like the first 2 pages, I said, hey, this is what I want. So I realized that I needed to go into philosophy of science initially. And then I had to change my career. I had to look for a scholarship. And I went to the London School of Economics. That was when I got my master's degrees there. I had already done other courses in Brazil related to statistics and to systems analysis. But when I went to the London School of Economics was where I really discovered my true intellectual home.
Right.
So from there to here, what happened? I went into philosophy initially in this very Anglo-Saxon methodological point of view of knowledge, but fortunately, Paul Feyerabend had been at the London School of Economics, and I was able to there meet his ideas. In addition to Popper's, to Lakatosh's, to Thomas Kuhn's ideas, I met Paul Feyerabend, and that was where I realized in the house of philosophy in which room I really felt comfortable. And that is the room that Feyerabend opened to all of us,
Right.
which is a criticism of scientific knowledge from inside, not as many people think, rejecting science, but turning science into something slightly different from what most people believe that it is and that it actually should be. In other words, science is a much more fun form of knowledge, is a much more fun and free form of investigation than many scientists understand it is. And may I say, the general public has an image of science that is much more stern than it actually is.
So this can be a little bit surprising for scientists or students in the what we call the exact or hard sciences. When you mentioned a little bit about Feyerabend's philosophy, could you elaborate a little bit on that? You know, in what way did he sort of take a different stance on science and on the search for
Okay,
all that?
so then we have to put Feyerabend a little bit in context,
Right.
about what was going on in the world, and let's say in science, especially in the hard sciences. Feyerabend was born in 1924. He was born in Austria. He was Austria was it was taken. It was governed by the German war effort, and the young Austrians had to serve in the German army. He was wounded at war for life, and so Feyerabend's youth happened in this very dramatic European history, which was the eclosion of the Second World War. So this is an important aspect of Feyerabend as a human, and I think that it definitely influences his philosophy, and you can see that when you read his autobiography. Okay, so more general historical context. In science, when Feyerabend was a young adult, we were having this tremendous revolution, which was having to deal with the groundbreaking discoveries, or they didn't sound like discoveries, they even sounded like errors, which was the whole, how can I say, it was like an explosion that happened within physics.
Right.
In the turn of the century, that is now still a surprise, because we don't know how to interpret quantum mechanics.
Quantum mechanics.
Right? So we are talking about this quantum mechanical explosion of the grounds for the most, how can I say, for the hardest of the hard sciences
Absolutely.
that has actually an empirical application.
Right.
One can say that mathematics is the hardest of all sciences, but that was also
Yes.
going through a tremendous explosion with the proposal of Hilbert's program, and that ended up in breaking apart with Gödel's theorem. Right. So what we see in the turn of the century is that there is a tremendous intellectual. It's not even a revolution, I say. I think it's like Shiva. I don't know if I should explain.
We often say paradigm shift, right?
I would say it's more than a paradigm shift,
right,
because it's really a destruction of many of the certainties
right,
that had been so solidly accepted and built
right,
since modernity. Since the rise of science in the Renaissance, and suddenly all those truths are put into question.
Right, right.
So even in mathematics. So I was talking about physics, which is an empirical science, but even in mathematics,
yes,
it was really groundbreaking. Right. So I would say that it was even stronger than a paradigm shift itself.
Okay.
Because a paradigm shift, well, there are many interpretations of how you can understand a paradigm shift, but in my personal view and view of maybe some colleagues, a paradigm shift does not provoke such a tremendous discontinuity in. I would like to mention also the arts. Right. The arts also in the turn of the century had a tremendous expression in the neo-vanguards. Right. That were breaking completely the language of the artistic expression. Right. So we had really a reconstruction, a breakdown and a reconstruction of human perception, of human sensitivity to topics that seem to be under control and waiting only for continuous progress, and suddenly they had to stop in their tracks. The road was broken, and we had to rebuild the whole endeavor for understanding and for perceiving and for expressing ourselves.
So, how do you approach the study of these diverse systems, and what insights have you gained about the relationships between different forms of rationality?
Okay, so. My philosophical point of departure is European education, which means that I depart from the Greek dialogues that install what we today call epistemology. Epistemology comes from episteme. Episteme as opposed to doxa. Episteme meaning knowledge and doxa meaning opinion. So this is one way of departing into examining human efforts for understanding. Departing from the difference between knowledge, episteme, and doxa that has been established in this very interesting dialogue called Theaetetus. This is the name of a young soldier, a young Athenian that was coming back from war, and he was very wounded.
One of the Platonic dialogues.
Yes. We're back to the Platonic dialogues. The Theaetetus, named after, because I when I first started reading the Theaetetus, and many people asked me, but is Theaetetus, was he in the dialogue? No, he is not in the dialogue actually, because he was wounded, and. So just like for Feyerabend, there is war in his history. In this philosophy, there is also war. The opposition between knowledge and episteme then comes after a long dialogue in the Theaetetus, and the great question today is understood as if we should trust our senses or if we should trust reason in building episteme as opposed to doxa. Doxa would be closer in this dialogue to an empirical approach to interpreting our experience, whereas episteme would be closer to a reasoning, rationalistic approach to understanding, perceiving, and organizing our experience into knowledge. Okay, so
in the sense that we can be fooled by our senses, whereas we can use the logos, we can use the rationality to attain truths. Okay.
Yes, but we do know now that our reasoning can also fool us, which was it took us a couple of centuries to actually really put this on the table of discussion in epistemology. But anyway, here we are, and this dialogue finishes with a definition for episteme. And it says that episteme is justified, rationally justified belief. And it is sometimes even taught as rationally justified true belief, that this would be knowledge. So the true belief is more difficult to attain, and it's another question. But the rationally justified was the point where I really, how can I say, I tried to dive into what is a rational justification for a interpretation of what we perceive, of what we know. So this was where I started my research. This was my PhD research, to a certain extent very informed by my master's researches. I have them both, and I have one in Brazil and one in England. And here I would like to open a little comment, because you see, today I work with these multiple forms of rationality, with multiple systems of knowledge, with interdisciplinarity, and this is not really only an intellectual proposal. It is a life experience of mine. I've been in the hard sciences, in the soft sciences. I've lived in different countries. This is a gift that I have from life, to have had this rich experience. And
so navigating different systems
and understanding that humans are really diverse, and that they can organize and make sense of human existence in many different ways. Okay, so closing this parenthesis, departing from searching for what does it mean to be rationally justified in believing something, to the point that I can say this is knowledge and not only opinion. Informed by these two courses, master's courses in epistemology, studying Feyerabend, once in England, once in Brazil, which gave me two different portraits of Feyerabend. I went on to my doctoral studies, and then I was in a interdisciplinary postgraduate program. So I asked for help from other, let's call them disciplines, than epistemology. I was also introduced to texts in anthropological texts, texts in literary criticism, texts in cognitive psychology, texts in cognitive linguistics. So I had an array of thinkers and concepts. Complexity was also played a very important a role in my coming up with what is my current proposal of how we should address knowledge. That proposal is an epistemology that is at the same time pluralistic and permeable. Pluralistic in the sense that it will consider more than one form of rationalizing and justifying a body of knowledge. Permeable in the sense that these different forms of knowledge actually communicate
Right.
with each other.
Right.
And within these different forms of knowledge that actually communicate with each other, if we take scientific knowledge, the different areas, the different disciplines in science also communicate with each other. How is this communication, how does it happen?
Right.
There are many ways of looking at this communication. My proposal is to look at the communication at the conceptual level, meaning that all these theories or all these explanations make use of concepts. And these concepts, if we trace how they were formed, we can realize that they are connected, not only in the same discipline, not only in the same area of knowledge, and sometimes not even in the same form of knowledge.
So yes, you've proposed basically a methodology of interdisciplinary research involving mimetic concept migration, is what you were talking about, right? Can you elaborate on this methodology a little bit more and share an example of its application?
Yes, of course. As a Feyerabendian, I must, before I start talking about this methodology, as this proposed methodology, it is not a unique methodology, it is not the methodology, it's a methodology, and as such, it should be taken as an option. This methodology is basically like an epistemically well, how can I say, well argued set of rules when you want to put together research, academic research, that is interdisciplinary. We are looking basically at the concepts that are the defining concepts of your research. So this is the first step, let's say, in approaching methodologically your interdisciplinary effort. What are your basic concepts? And here I must add to the list, to the array of other disciplines or other lines of intellectual lines in philosophy. I, on my own, entered the terrain of what is called postmodern or post-structuralist philosophy, and I used as definition of what is a concept. Basically, my basic definition is a definition that comes from postmodern philosophy, from Deleuze, when in his book, What is Philosophy? He, in the first chapter, elaborates on what is it to philosophize, and he says that to philosophize is to create concepts, and in how you create the concepts, he explains how a concept comes to being, into being as such, and how it is always a very networked construction with meanings that are not stable meanings, that are meanings that are moving along lines, that actually change along the, let's say, the existence of the endeavor of expressing something through that concept. Some meaning, some experience, some perception. So this was also a very important, I must mention, addition to my proposal, because postmodern or post-structuralist philosophy is distant from my origins in philosophy, is distant from the Anglo-Saxon point of view with which I entered philosophy of science. But I have no problem in putting together points of view or intellectual histories that might seem contradictory or incompatible. This is my my milieu.
So it's even an intradisciplinary approach, not just an inter and transdisciplinary approach.
Yeah, exactly. So my my research on interdisciplinarity or even transdisciplinarity was actually transdisciplinary. It sort of folded over itself,
okay, yeah,
right? And so what is a mimetic conceptual migration? That is the heart of the possibility of crossing these boundaries that are historically defined, are academically, how can I say, put into existence because they are taught. The boundaries between the disciplines are taught to us. The application of what is put forward in the academic world are also bound by these boundaries. These boundaries are imposed on us, and they look like natural boundaries. So all these divisions between disciplines, they are naturalized, right? They seem to be there by nature.
Right.
And this naturalization of the boundaries between disciplines, of the boundaries between forms of knowledge, where different forms of knowledge are mainly taken as pre-scientific, as leading to this epitome in human understanding that is scientific knowledge, which means that they are lesser forms of understanding in interpreting the world and the human existence and the human experience. So this is taught, and this has been so ingrained through generations that it appears to people that this is actually the natural way of things. So when you want to actually challenge this form of perceiving, I thought that I really needed something that would be I'm not sure I wanted to say convincing, but it would have to be something that would itself be of a navigating nature. And this is why the concepts, which are like the units of understanding, in the sense that it is through concepts that we organize the relations between things, that we organize in units of perception, and then this unit had to be mobile, and it had to be free to actually transit. Mimesis is a concept that also comes from Platonist philosophy. It is initially a copy, understood as a copy and as a bad copy of the perfect world of ideas into the imperfect material world. But the concept of mimesis has also been reinterpreted. It was reinterpreted, for example, very close to Plato by Aristotle. And Aristotle, who had a more empirical point of view, he realized that copying also served cognitively, which means that a copy, perfect or imperfect, also serves like understanding about what you are copying. And from this, very initial in this history of the history of the concept of mimesis, I jumped to a contemporary Brazilian literary critic called Luis Costa Lima. I believe he is still alive. I had never met him when I was at the Pontifical Catholic University, but he was actually there. And because I was at the philosophy department and he was in the literature department.
The silos.
The silos. But a friend introduced me to his, and I read his book and I said, so he elaborates on this Aristotelian aperçu that when you copy, when you write, when you revisit anything, you are actually rebuilding. You are actually learning by, sort of like learning by doing, in the sense that you rebuild what you are copying, and you actually you change yourself, and you change that copy when you look at it. when we say the word copy, it sounds like you are just taking advantage of something that already existed there.
Mm-hmm.
He does his analysis within literature and within art. So he was studying, he was looking at what is the effect of anything artistic, and it doesn't have to be technically a work of art, because anything can be turned into a work of art when it provokes in you this mimetic sensation that you are being presented to something that you interpret, that you rebuild, where you sort of change what you see and you are changed by what you saw. So the mimetic concept migration is a migration of these ideas that go from one symbolic system to another, from one system of knowledge to another. And as they move, they not only change in meaning, but they are also changing the position of the, let's say, of who employs that concept to represent his experience. Now, for a more, let's say, contemporary example, I used metabiology. That was actually my postdoctoral research. It wasn't exactly based in the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro because I didn't have any special link with the university. I had an indirect link with the university through the research that was done by, today he is my husband, but he is also my intellectual partner. We work together. Virginia Chaitin, the mathematician, who is a very renowned mathematician and theorist of information. He is one of the co-creators of the area of algorithmic information theory. So he proposed a meta-theory for biology, explaining mathematically, proving mathematically, or trying to prove mathematically that the Darwinian evolution could actually take place mathematically. There is an immense amount of empirical evidence of Darwinian theory. There are some problems with the theory, but nobody could say that this is a theory that needs mathematical proof. But since randomness is a very is a basic part of Greg's conceptual toolkit in algorithmic information theory, and since life and biology are a very important contemporary topic in some ways due to the discoveries of molecular biology today, in some ways biology is a, quotes, hotter topic even than physics in many ways, because we are getting more and more knowledge in that area now, in this current moment. So Greg wanted to participate in that, and he decided to prove mathematically that something like Darwinian evolution could actually take place. And he did. When Greg developed metabiology, I was finishing my PhD course, and I immediately said, this is a wonderful area for applying my concept, my idea of conceptual mimetic migration. This is also an interesting example. It can turn into a case study for my, quotes, methodology for interdisciplinarity. And so, in addition to observing the mimetic migrations between concepts, when you are entertaining the validity of this interdisciplinary effort, you, I suggest that you have to also see how are we dealing with the epistemic goals of this new area. Is it actually expanding our understanding about questions that have not been answered? Is it bringing about new questions that we would have not been able to organize mentally if it weren't for the new concepts, the migrated concepts? Is it giving rise to new concepts? Is it relating to other areas that are not yet contemplated in the, let's say, intellectual cocktail that led to that? So I have this relatively well worked out in my postgraduate research.
I'm thinking that this can be a strong message also to the students here at UM6B, because you and Greg, you both are residents here in 2023, 2024 at the Institute, a new Institute for Advanced Studies here on the campus. And this can be really a call to all the students from the different fields, from different schools, to come and meet and exchange with you and Greg around these approaches and your concept of mimetic migration. I was wondering, for students, aspiring researchers who want to take this interdisciplinary approach to research, what kind of can you give some advice on how to approach that?
Okay, if there is already a will to do that, I think that the first great step was already taken. So I congratulate students and professors who are already open to this kind of research. Second step would be, there are many methodologies out there in the bibliography. If you Google interdisciplinary methodologies, there are many interdisciplinary methodologies out there. What I have noticed when I took when I researched on the methodologies that are available, I noticed that they are basically very operational, very instrumental, and they do not focus very much on the epistemic aspect of what it is to know, what it is when you are putting the different areas together. So it is a very pragmatic approach. Unlike my approach that has pragmatic application, but it departs from a very philosophical, epistemological point of view. And one has to choose which is the approach that one prefers, right? I still think that it is worth knowing at least one or two or three or four different methodologies to get in touch, to read about them, to see which one will fit better your research proposal. And if you can get hold of some more epistemological point of view, I think it helps because you will understand better how these concepts get together and how the translations actually happen. Because as I said, in the Science Week, February this year, 2023, in spite of there being a tremendous intellectual how can I say, the intellectual aspect of interdisciplinary research or interdisciplinary work projects, there is also a very important emotional aspect. And emotions and thinking definitely go together. So if you think about the disciplines as having come to be through this mimetic migration along the history of humankind, searching for understanding, instead of looking at disciplines as you were introduced to them at school. This is the math teacher, biology teacher, chemistry teacher, language and arts teacher. If you give yourself the chance of abandoning this framework and looking at ideas and looking at your subject of research in this broader panorama, you might find insights that otherwise you would not. So my suggestion would be search for some kind of a methodology, search for people who have worked. It's always good to listen, not that you're going to parrot what they did, but you will listen to what someone has done. I am here.
Yes. Yeah.
If you want, I am definitely available to pop in and help and show how my methodology would work in your specific research project. I would be very happy to contribute, but I definitely am not the only way.
Just to go back a little bit to Feyerabend, you are a member of the International Steering Committee for the Feyerabend Centennial 2024, because he was born in 1924. This will be the 100-year anniversary of his birth. And you've been involved in organizing events in Brazil and Argentina, and also here in Morocco. So in collaboration with the Chair of Complexities and Humanities, you are preparing an event during the next edition of UM6B's Science Week in February next year, 2024, a centennial around Feyerabend's life and legacy. Can you tell us a bit more about the significance of celebrating Feyerabend's centennial in Morocco at this time, and what attendees can expect from this exciting event?
Well, when I was here in February for the Science Week, I was already organizing Feyerabend events in Brazil and in Argentina, trying to organize events also in Mexico. And when I arrived in Morocco, I initially did not have the clear understanding that I could think of proposing a centennial event here, until I had conversations with Reda, with Reda Ben Kiran, the chair, president of the chair. And then, so I must say that in as much as I brought this idea was only able to grow in Moroccan territory, in Moroccan terrain, especially in the chair of Complexities and Humanities, through the acceptance of Reda Ben Kiran. So, and why did I feel that I could talk to him about this? Well, there are his personal attributes as a thinker, as an intellectual, but there is also something that has to do with the fact that Reda is Moroccan. He is truly Moroccan. And I felt that he represents the diversity that I feel here in Morocco. And not only through the intellectual point of view, but from the human point of view. This is the richness that I think really means celebrating Feyerabend's Centennial. Celebrating Feyerabend's Centennial is more than an academic celebration of Feyerabend's intellectual contributions, which were already worthy of celebration. But most of all is the fact that today, in today's world, we need, in the academic world and outside the academic world, this perception of plurality, of diversity, and of the human element in everything that we do.
Right.
Everything that we do in our lives. So I felt at ease to, inside, maybe outside, it didn't seem that way, but inside I was a little shy to propose this. And actually, the proposal was embraced and was potentialized. And now that I am here again, back in Morocco, unfortunately, we had this very sad event which provoked the destruction of the material infrastructure of the communities in the High Atlas Mountains.
Right. The earthquake and
I repeat the material infrastructure because fortunately we have survivors. We have their memories in them and in many of the material things that they were able to how can I say, collect from the destruction. I immediately also thought we ought to make this connection. Not only celebrating the diversity, now we are also celebrating the importance of respecting cultural knowledge. When we, cultural specific, cultural diversity, when I say non-scientific, when I mean in endogenous forms of knowledge that are not the mainstream form of knowledge led by any country. And here I don't even mean only science. I mean it in every possible sense. Different forms of aesthetics, different forms of religion, different forms of agriculture, different forms of architecture. What I understood from the little I know of the High Atlas Mountains population is that it is a different population, it's a specific population, it's a cultural heritage in Morocco that is a jewel that we want to preserve. And this evidently matches with a Feyerabend that not too many people know. He is more, he is considered more as that philosopher of science that some people say was against science because his most famous book was Against Method, which meant actually against the scientific method. And some people understand, oh, then this means he was against science. No, he was in favor of a scientific endeavor that was less methodological and more creative. And we already spoke about that. But in addition to that, the late Feyerabend also realized the importance of preserving forms of knowledge and cultures that were not the prevailing culture. And this was where, together also with another member of the organizing committee, which is unique here in Morocco, we actually decided to link this Feyerabend Centennial here in Morocco to the effort of the reconstruction of the High Atlas Mountains, but respecting, taking into account, and maybe even reviving what is not so well known, what is not so well broadcast about this community that is a little distant from the centers in Morocco itself.
Just to finish, Virginia, just so you're here for the year, you've been here a few months, and can you just share a little bit your impressions of Morocco and the university, UM6B, the environment, the ecosystem, a little bit, how you could share about that?
Yes, I've been here for like 3.5 months. Since we mentioned the earthquake, I had already been through earthquakes in Mexico and in Chile. The earthquake was, the earthquake can be seen as a seismic event, but it can also be understood as something that is like that shakes the grounds where we think that we are standing solidly. So to me, the earthquake, right after we arrived, from my personal perspective, was a, I don't know, it was like a sign that the experience here was not going to be anything predictable, that it is like a new ground I am stepping on in every possible way. So this is a very personal interpretation. The next thing I noticed was the wonderful human reaction to what happened to the people at the High Atlas Mountains. the effort that the UM6B community, of which we already felt that we were part of it, and we were part of this effort in helping the population. We didn't go down to the high Atlas Mountains, my family, but we helped the way we could at a distance with medicines and, so we felt that we were contributing. We were talking to people that were there. So this sense of community, the sense of a collective effort was also something that marked my experience here up to now. We have not had the chance to travel as much as I would like to because we have 2 small children and it makes travel a little more difficult, but we have been to Tarazout. And in addition to the additional, I always like to compare. I think that, this is my maybe a little bit of the cognitive training that you can only see if you have a contrast.
Absolutely.
So the university, the UM6P, when we came in February and also when we came back, is really the place that is actually unique in our experience. I can say it's obviously unique in the world, but it's unique in our experience in as much as we see this sincerity in the effort of changing Morocco towards a Morocco with more social, how do you say, belonging to the contemporary times. We see here that Morocco, through the UM6P, is being brought to contemporary times, all of Morocco, not just a little part. So I find beautiful the fact that you have students here from not only all over Morocco, but also from other countries in Africa. And that this wonderful, what do I have to say about the fact that this is a beautiful, highest level possible campus? This is already obvious, but there are such campi around the world, but what makes this one different is not this. What makes this one different is that it is part of a genuine effort of bringing this to an entire population and to an entire continent. It's not a local effort. And you feel that this is a genuine, how do you say, proposition. It's not just to be in the pamphlets and the booklets and the advertisement of the university. So this feeling is really what made us come back to Morocco. This feeling that it is for real. It is for real. There are, as in every project, we have to find places where it can be ameliorated. Nothing is perfect. I am not saying that, this is just, no, because that would be naive. It is obvious that we can observe that there are little aspects that need attention. But these little aspects that need attention are aspects that are part of this effort.
Absolutely.
And the effort is there and the intention is there. So we are really, actually, I would say we are proud. We feel privileged. I speak for Greg and myself to be part of this effort. And we really would like to contribute as much as we can. Involvement with students is for us the best way to do this. Obviously involvement with professors, but this we have been having more often than with students. So if I can take the opportunity to actually invite the students and also invite professors to come to talk to us. We have our UM6B emails. We are at the UM6B basically every day, all day. We are not here sometimes because we do have to travel for various reasons. We have our 2 small children, 6 and 4-year-old. Our children are also, how can I say, part of the reason for us being here is our children.
Wonderful.
Why? Because we want our children to grow up in a kind of an environment that is actually diverse,
Right.
that is truly plural, that is truly respectful of diversity, where we don't see very strong polarizations, where we see an effort of, being different and being in peace with everybody's differences. So our children, what we wish for our children, the world that we wish for our children, is in some ways exemplified here in this campus, in the life we lead here in Ben Guerir. Okay. It's a small part of the world, but it's a special part of the world.
Right. Well, that's a wonderful way to finish this talk. Virginia, thank you very much for accepting to be our guest here on the podcast of the Chair of Complexities in Humanities. And we once again call on all students to come and meet you and meet Greg on the campus. They know they can find you through the email system. And thank you again, and hope to talk soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It is my pleasure and my honor.
Thank you.